Do you want to be ahead of the game for the latest in arts, music, cuisine, and entertainment across the Middle East's most dynamic capital cities? Al Monitor is proud to launch our City Pulse newsletters, focused exclusively on local news, starting in Riyadh, Dubai, Istanbul, and Doha. Each week, our on-the-ground writers in these cities cover the latest cultural happenings and trends, so you have everything you need to know for the best local experiences. To subscribe for free, go to almonitor.com, that's al-monitor.com, and sign up on our newsletter page.
The possibility is here. It's very real, and there are a lot of concerns about such a scenario, about an internal conflict or a civil war. Throughout Lebanon's history, we've seen that pushing through such decisive issues without an agreement among the various political forces, sects, this risks igniting internal confrontations.
Welcome back to the Al Monitor Brief. I'm Adam Lucente. The Lebanese government is set to convene for a highly anticipated cabinet session on Friday to discuss the army's plan to disarm Hezbollah and bring all weapons under the state's control. At the time of recording on Thursday, it was unclear whether ministers from Hezbollah and its ally, Amel, would participate in the meeting. The session is the latest sign that efforts by President Joseph Aoun and Prime Minister Nawaf Salam to finally disarm the Iran-backed Shiite Islamist group are intensifying. The army was tasked last month with coming up with a plan for the disarmament and ended up endorsing a U.S. proposal that would take the group's weapons away in exchange for Israel stopping its attacks on Lebanon. Israel continues to take efforts to deter Hezbollah into its own hands, and strikes continued this week, while Hezbollah says the Lebanese government must stop the Israeli attacks before any discussion on weapons can occur. U.S. Special Envoys Tom Barrack and Morgan Ortagus visited Beirut last week, indicating the persistent pressure from the Trump administration on Lebanon to move forward with the plan. In this episode, we hear from Al Monitor's correspondent in Beirut, Beatrice Farhat. Beatrice takes us through the details of the army's phased plan for Hezbollah disarmament, why conflict in Lebanon over the issue is a real possibility, Hezbollah's efforts to stall any moves to take their weapons, and whether the Israeli strikes are undermining the government's efforts. Hope you enjoy. Beatrice, welcome back to the Al Monitor Brief.
Thank you. Thanks again for having me.
Beatrice, what are the main points of disagreement over the government's plan to disarm Hezbollah? And are the group's allies open to disarmament at all under certain conditions, or are they completely opposed?
The main issue or dispute over the government's plan on the disarmament of Hezbollah is basically that the U.S. is behind this proposal. The U.S. has been pushing for completely disarming Hezbollah, and that's why the group does not want to surrender its weapons under U.S. terms and by extension Israeli terms, especially since Israel is still launching daily strikes against Lebanon and has not left the territories it occupied during the last war between Israel and Hezbollah. So that's mainly why Hezbollah is refusing to remove its weapons or hand over its weapons. About the conditions, it's not per se that they're open to conditional disarmament, but more so that they reject the process at this particular moment in light of the strikes and Israel's unwavering position or refusal to stop the strikes and withdraw from Lebanon. So that's why Hezbollah and its allies, including Parliament Speaker Nabih Berri, who also heads the Amal movement, that's why they're now floating the idea of a national dialogue. And they're saying, we will not hand over our weapons. This issue, the issue of their weapons, can only be discussed internally among Lebanese political forces through a national dialogue. So that's what they're asking now. But in my opinion, a national dialogue is an old and used tactic that has been used several times in the past, at times of political deadlock, to stall or delay radical and drastic solutions to specific crises. So resorting to these rounds of talks or even starting to discuss the issue in these so-called national dialogues In my opinion, they will not yield to any results, and they could be a tactic by Hezbollah to further delay the issue of its disarmament and eventually hoping that the government would abandon the idea.
And if this disarmament plan moves forward without consensus, without the backing of Hezbollah or their allies like Amel, what is the possibility of an actual conflict occurring in Lebanon?
The possibility is here. It's very real, and there are a lot of concerns about such a scenario, about an internal conflict or a civil war. Throughout Lebanon's history, we've seen that pushing through such decisive issues without an agreement among the various political forces, sects, this risks igniting internal confrontations. Hezbollah considers its arsenal as a shield, as a protection for the Shiite community, and as central to its identity as a resistance group that has allowed it to protect itself and protect Lebanon from Israel, from the Israeli occupation. So any unilateral move now to remove Hezbollah's weapons by force or not will be seen by the group as a direct threat to its existence, and that could trigger protests, tensions, political paralysis, and in the worst case scenario, street clashes or even civil war or internal confrontations. So that's why at this point, Lebanese leaders are cautious and treading carefully on the issue, trying to reach a consensus to avoid such a scenario.
And where does the Lebanese army stand on disarmament, and how do they want to tackle this issue?
So because of these tensions and because of concerns of street clashes or internal confrontations, the army finds itself now in a delicate position, and it's also being very careful in drafting its plan that the government asked it to prepare on the disarmament process. The army has made it clear that it does not want or it does not intend to confront or enter in clashes against any Lebanese component. And based on reports we're seeing and reading, it seems now the army is leaning toward a phased process, a gradual disarmament, and probably starting south of the Litani River near the border with Israel. Others are talking about a step-for-step approach. For example, Adiyar, the local Adiyar, spoke about a potential scenario where the disarmament could begin in Beirut, in the capital Beirut, and the army would place monitors for Hezbollah's weapons depots and declare that they are now in the state's custody. In return, Lebanon would ask Israel to take a step and show goodwill.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with Beatrice Farhat after this short break.
Today's transformation of the Middle East is at the center of global geopolitics. Whether you're an analyst, diplomat, executive, or academic, you need the best reporting and analysis to understand what's really happening on the ground and what it means for the world. Al Monitor is the award-winning independent leader in Middle East news. From Riyadh to Beirut, Abu Dhabi to Doha, and Baghdad to Tehran, our team of over 100 expert journalists report daily on the top stories driving the regional trends. Download our mobile app and subscribe to Al Monitor to follow what leaders and decision makers are reading every day. Go to almonitor.com, that's AL-MONITOR.com, and use promo code POD25, POD25 for a discount.
Okay, we're back. Beatrice, you mentioned earlier the continued Israeli strikes on Lebanon. How are those military actions affecting the plans for disarmament and the dialogue around the issue in the country?
Well, I think that the strikes are instead of pushing the government to take action, which the government does not want to do by force to avoid confrontation. So I think these strikes are undermining the government's efforts to advance the plan. With each Israeli strike is reinforcing Hezbollah's argument that its weapons are still necessary to defend the country. And the government at that point can't claim that Lebanon is secure enough to disarm Hezbollah. which even after its war and after the losses it incurred after the war with Israel recently in the last year, it's still stronger than the Lebanese army. So that's why Lebanese authorities are pushing the US envoys, including Tom Barak, who was in Beirut recently with the Ortegas. They are asking America to pass a message to Israel, basically telling them that we did our part, we approved the plan, the US proposal, or the objectives mentioned in the US proposal on the disarmament of Hezbollah. So now it's your turn. It's Israel's turn to take measures or to take a step, including withdrawing or stopping its attacks. But Israel is not budging either. Israel wants to see that the plan is being implemented now immediately. It wants to see steps on the ground, progress on the ground.
Beatrice, thanks a lot for your time, and we look forward to more of your reporting on this issue from Beirut.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Al Monitor Brief. Be sure to follow Al Monitor for more on the stories impacting the Middle East. Until next time, I'm Adam Lucente.